Welcome to another episode of Student of the Gun Radio. I'm your host, Paul Markle, and I'm a little bit, not under the weather, but I'm depressed. I'm upset, anxious. I feel like I don't even know what I want to say.
He needs a hug.
I want to say bad words. As you guys know, the official Student of the Gun Glass Case of Emotion studios were located down here at the sunny Gulf Coast of Biloxi, Mississippi. And this weekend we had an act of barbarism. We had an attack.
Like people got their hairs cut?
No,
their haircuts?
Not that.
Okay.
No. Two police officers were murdered Saturday night in Hattiesburg by a group of monsters, of thugs, of animals that are roaming around amongst us. And if that hurts your feelings, you can piss off and go somewhere else. That's the fact. But what's even more sad is the apologists who've already lined up to make excuses for these murders. It was a traffic stop. The details it's still under investigation. The entire situation is under investigation. But here's what we know. We know that one officer initiated a traffic stop late Saturday night. Apparently it was for a speeding offense. He did the traffic stop, called for a second car because there was multiple people in the vehicle. And as he approached the vehicle, apparently him and his backup partner, shots from inside the car rang out, and both officers were killed. Both officers died at the hospital. So far, they've arrested 4 suspects with various charges: capital murder, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, possession of firearms by convicted felons, and so forth. And it didn't take very long. Thankfully, the police officers in and around Hattiesburg, the cooperating sheriff's department, and the city of Hattiesburg, they were able to scoop up these turds pretty quickly, and they're all in jail right now. But rather than just call it what it is, rather than call it a vile, vicious murder, we have idiots in the mainstream media referring to it as a tragedy. No, a tragedy is a school bus full of kids going over a cliff. That's a tragedy. This is a travesty. This is animals. This is monsters out roaming amongst us. And you say, oh, but Paul, this could have been the first time that any of these folks were ever in trouble with the law, and they just lashed out. No, it's not. They're recidivist criminals. And they even interviewed the mother of one of the criminals, and she said, oh, yeah, I'm not surprised. He be smoking that spice all the time and hearing voices and blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay. Well, heck. And you say, well, I'm glad it wasn't me. I'm glad it wasn't you either. But this is what you need to understand. We've become so tolerant. Do you know what it means to tolerate? It doesn't mean to approve of. It doesn't mean to enjoy. It doesn't mean to like. It means to put up with. We're so tolerant of the evil in our society. We're so cowed that we can't even call evil to its face. And what makes it worse? You want to know what makes it worse? The fact that this happened. So Hattiesburg has a mayor, and the mayor's name is Johnny Dupree. Johnny Dupree, and you're probably not surprised, he's got a capital D behind his name. So he gets on Fox and Friends on Monday morning, and he says the following. Mississippi just passed last year, or a couple of years ago, a concealed weapons law where you can carry your gun outside without a license. And now, this past year, they passed one where you can have it concealed in your purse or your briefcase without a permit. You know, people just have to be, police officers have to be real vigilant now. What? Oh, and he continued saying, for whatever reason, we're passing some kind of laws I don't think are good for our country. Did you get that? So, 5 pieces of human filth, or I'm sorry, 4 pieces of human filth. I guess Johnny Dupree's the 5th one. 4 pieces of human filth commit murder, capital murder, because of a traffic stop. And who knows what they had on them. I don't know, and I don't care. And so, never to be one not to turn a tragedy, turn a travesty into a political statement. We've got a Democrat mayor who comes out, rather than blaming do you get this, Jared? He's not concerned about the thugs, about the vermin, about the monsters that he has populating his city. He's concerned with the inanimate objects.
Well, and Banks, who one of the pieces of human debris here, he's facing additional charges of a felon in possession of a firearm. So it wouldn't have mattered if this law that this dude is talking about was there or not. The felon in possession of a firearm, he shouldn't have had it.
Criminals are always going to find a way to get guns because that's what they are. Maybe we need, instead of reducing the number of guns, maybe we need to reduce the number of criminals walking around free in our society. Yeah, that's, folks, I was ready to talk about this, and, I was not happy.
Do you have a link to him on the Fox and Friends thing?
You know how slow Fox and Friends is.
Well,
or Fox News is. If you can pull it. You go into the MLN story, and I went to Fox and Friends earlier, and it's up there.
I'm going to see if I can find the audio because his dad called his office, and
I called the mayor's office, and of course he wasn't in, and the woman who answered the phone, she didn't have anything to do with that. And I asked her, I said, this news just came out, and can you confirm or deny this? And, of course, she's like, I have no idea. I can't confirm or deny that actually happened or he said that or what have you. But our source for that quote is AmmoLand.com. The title is Hattiesburg Mayor Blames Lax Concealed Carry Laws for Felons Killing Cops. Man, I don't even know what else to say. So I'm not going to say any more about that. Well, I'm going to move on. Well, it is Tuesday. It is another day. It's time to get moving. It's time to talk about guns and gun-related stuff because that's what we do here. And the following segment is brought to you by Brownells. If you have a gun, Brownells has something for you. Check them out at brownells.com. If you find yourself on Brownells often, you might want to sign up for their Edge program because, let's face it, a lot of you guys that are listening to me right now spend a lot of time poking around on Brownells.com. The Edge program gives you what priority shipping, free shipping, priority shipping, and lots of good stuff. So check it out. Velocity Triggers. Our good friends at Velocity Triggers actually shared a video with us this morning on our Student of the Gun Facebook page, the official Student of the Gun Facebook page. But Velocity Triggers are designed for precision. And if you've got a black rifle, they've got a trigger for you. And lastly, we want to thank our friends at Crossbreed Holsters for supporting us, being our friends. And if you have a gun and you need to carry a gun, which you should be carrying a gun, if you're not, well, you're wrong. But Crossbreed Holsters can help you out. Go to crossbreedholsters.com. How are you doing over there? You have the audio link? If you don't, that's okay.
It was like 7 minutes long, and I don't want to play a whole 7-minute clip.
Okay. If you want, we can drop that in anytime. Now, the following story, and this is something that it had a whole entire weekend to percolate. I think when did it come out? I can't even remember what day this story broke. It was L.A. Times.
It was on Friday, I think.
Okay, it was Friday after we had already finished up Friday's episode, and actually we'd already recorded Monday's episode.
So I think it was Saturday because that's when we went to the range, right?
It was too late to comment on it. I don't recall. Did we go to the range Saturday?
I don't. May 7th.
It doesn't matter.
Whatever day that
Anyway, the dateline in this story is op-ed, May 7, 2015. And, well, It was at 8:52 p.m. is when this story posted, so it really would have been picked up until the next morning. And the title of the story is Why the Police Shouldn't Use Glocks. And you just heard that and you said, are you sure that story is from 2015, that it's not from 1995? Because that sounds like the same kind of crap that we were hearing 20 years ago when the Glock pistol first became popular, or it gained a tremendous amount of popularity. It probably took, I went to the police academy in 1991, 92.
Hey, I got a question for you real quick. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you remember writing an article called 3 Views of the Tactical Pistol? It's funny because one of Paul Alleman just posted a picture to Student of the Gun's Facebook page and said, great article rifling through old magazines left at the gun club. And it says, 3 Views of the Tactical Pistol, the Advantages and Disadvantages of Military, Police, and Civilian Training by Paul Markle.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is an old article.
That's kind of cool.
That article's probably 20 years old.
I wonder what magazine that was in.
It was in, I don't know. Yeah, those. Yeah, you guys need to clean out your, you need to clean out your shop a little more often, because, yeah, that article, I didn't write that title. I very rarely wrote the titles. I would send the articles in with a suggested title, and the editors, invariably, they change it. So that's why when you said that, I didn't really remember it. Did you know did you find the, did Gaston Glock invent the negligent discharge article?
Did what?
Okay, now it's time for you to look at me.
Okay, yeah.
Did you find the article that I wrote 2 summers ago called "Did Gaston Glock Invent the Negligent Discharge"?
I think it's in the.
Because we've upgraded
in the archive.
We've upgraded the blog.
Yeah, I need to post that.
So look that up. Anyway. All right, so here we go. We've got an article in the L.A. Times. And so you say, okay, the L.A. Times publishes an anti-Glock article. Whoopity-doo! Mainstream media is against the Glock. You'd think that they would love the Glock, because if you're in the mainstream media, every black pistol is a Glock. I mean, if it's a pistol and it's black, it's a Glock pistol. Everything's a Glock. Just like every rifle is either an AR-15 or it's an AK-47. Even when the police pick up a Keltec Sub 2000 off the ground, it's an AK-47. So it starts out like this. Timothy Stansbury died in a New York housing project stairwell in 2004 because he startled a police officer. The officer's surprise at encountering Stansbury caused the officer's hand to clench and his weapon to fire. The death was ruled accidental by a grand jury, though the officer was later stripped of his gun for the remainder of his career. Akai Gurley died in another New York housing project stairwell last fall. A rookie officer with his finger on the trigger of his pistol tensed as he pushed open a stuck door. The added pressure on the trigger caused his weapon to fire a shot down the stairwell. The round ricocheted off the wall to strike Gurley. Though the shot wasn't intentional and the officer didn't even know Gurley was there, the death has been ruled a criminal homicide, and the trial is still pending. There's no way they're going to get... I mean, based upon what we just heard there, you don't get a homicide, whatever. In both of these incidents, the officers were using the same weapon. Well, I'm guessing they were different weapons, but the same design. I'm guessing they weren't like one guy. Maybe they did. Maybe they took the one dude's gun and gave it to this guy. Both of those incidents, the police officers were using the same weapon, a Glock. A polymer frame, striker-fired pistol with a short trigger pull and no external safeties. So at this point in time, here's what I want you to do over there while I'm talking, Jared. I want you to type in the word Glock, and then I want you to type in New York trigger, and then I want you to tell me how much the trigger weight is. Okay, so I just read you the opening paragraphs of this LA Times article. So you're thinking, well, this is obviously written by some left-wing hack, some puke-faced out on the West Coast, a member of the liberal intelligentsia that, thinks that every gun is a machine gun, every rifle is an AR-15. Some people that don't know better. Sadly, that's not the case. This article is written by a Mr. Bob Owens, and you're like, why does that name stand out to me? Well, because Mr. Bob Owens is the editor, as it say, editor-in-chief.
I'm pretty sure he's the owner of
He's the
website.
editor, owner, chief bottle washer for a website called BearingArms.com. And in the description at the bottom of this is how the LA Times bolsters this guy's his rep as an expert. It says he is the editor of BearingArms.com. He is an alumnus of Gunsight Academy. Now, he's an alumnus. He doesn't speak for Gunsight. He's a rifle marksmanship instructor with the Appleseed Project, which is not a bad thing. I've been to an Appleseed match or training event, and I watched it. It was okay. It was good. And the author of a short ebook, So You Want to Own a Gun, subtitled Accept a Glock. So you're thinking, all right, well, what the fudge? What the funk and wagnall is going on here? You've got someone who runs a pro-gun website, and he's hacking at Glock here. Well, it continues. It says, it's a popular handgun for law enforcement in New York and beyond. The Los Angeles Police Department has a number of firearms approved for use, including 9 Glock models. Wow. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department recently began issuing new recruits the Smith & Wesson M&P, a handgun with a short trigger pull that operates much in the same way. The Glock uses the marketing term safe action to describe the firing pin system, but the truth, and this is according to Mr. Owens, says, but the truth is that Glocks are accident prone. So the guns themselves are accident prone. Not the users, but the guns. And he says they contributed to more than 120 accidental discharges in the Washington Metropolitan Department from 88 to 98. Now, hang on a second. The pistols contributed to more than 120 accidental discharges. Were they accidents or were they negligence?
That's the
Because
thing.
I think it was probably negligence.
I'm pretty sure he thinks they're the same thing. Judging by the article, that he said that he said accidental discharges in there, but it was all due to negligence of the officer.
Of the officers. Anecdotes of increased accidental shootings have followed the pistol for more than 30 years because there were no negligent shootings until the invention of the Glock pistol. Did you know that?
Yeah.
They never occurred before.
Yep.
We never had. That reminds me of...
This trigger...
let me finish my story real quick.
Okay.
It reminds me of, I was at a gun show many years ago, and I was standing at the edge of a table, you know how you do, and you listen to the obese guy in the overalls on the other side of the table talking, and he's trying to sell a guy like a Garand-style rifle, and the guy's asking about the trigger pull, and he goes... And he says, well, World War II, they didn't have these light triggers. All the triggers were heavy, and they were, durable or something. And he says, that's why they never had accidental discharges back then. I was like, so did you just say that there were no accidental discharges during World War II because the triggers were all heavy? Did you just say that? That's what I thought. Okay, tell us how heavy a New York trigger is, Jared.
Well, the spring, the trigger spring here says NY1, so I'm guessing that's New York. It says 11 pounds, which is insane. Mm-hmm. Then I found something on Vickers' tactical page that said that, let me see, another disturbing trend is for law enforcement agencies to put very heavy trigger on their issue service pistol for liability reasons. The most famous example is the Glock New York trigger that weighs approximately 8 pounds. So 8 is the low one. 8 is insane.
I was thinking it was 12, but let's go ahead. Now, did you go to Glock.com for that? The New York trigger option?
And even worse is the New York Plus that has a trigger pull weight of 12 pounds.
A
So
New
there's
York
two different
Plus. So, okay. So, all right, let's say 12 pounds, 8 to 12. The standard trigger pull weight on a factory config Glock is 5.5. Okay, that's the standard. Now, all of you match shooters are like, wow, that's heavy. Oh, so in New York, they thought that they could make the guns safer
For the criminals.
Yeah, for the criminals, by increasing the amount of weight that it takes to discharge the gun. Okay. How has that worked out for him so far? Because I can guarantee you, it might not have been the one in 2004, but this guy just recently, the Gurley shooting, that guy had a New York trigger in his Glock. So anywho, just last month, Ocala. Now this is even more insanity, and please bear with me while I go through this because you have to hear this. Just last month, Ocala, Florida police officer Jared Forsyth was shot and killed by a fellow officer after a Glock training session. Apparently, it wasn't a very good Glock training session. The fellow officer failed to do a chamber check before pulling the trigger as a part of the handgun's normal disassembly procedure. When the gun fired, the bullet went through the gap in Officer Forsyth's body armor. Despite efforts of paramedics to keep him alive, the young officer died on the way to the hospital. Riddle me this, Batman. Do they not teach the 4 universal safety rules to police officers in Ocala, Florida? Why was he disassembling the gun for maintenance while pointing it at another officer? Well, that's a good point, Paul. I'm glad that you brought that up. But it obviously was not the officer's fault. It was obviously the fault of the pistol. In terms of mechanical design, well, here's the deal, folks. There's lots of striker-fired guns out there. There's SR9s, there's Glocks, there's M&Ps, there's the various Springfield XDs and the TP9 SA. There's lots of striker-fired guns. Many, 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 many. And in order to disassemble a striker-fired gun, well, what do you know when the slide is worked on a striker-fired gun? What does that do? Well, it puts spring tension on the firing pin. And if you want to disassemble that gun, you have to take the tension off of the firing pin first before you disassemble it. Well, how do you do that with a normal Glock pistol? Well, unless you're an amateur or an Ocala police officer, first thing you do is you remove the ammunition source. That would be a magazine. Then you retract the slide, lock it in the open position, and look for an empty chamber. And once you verify that there's an empty chamber, then you close the slide, point the gun in a safe direction or a direction that would be designed to or likely to absorb a bullet. Then you continue throughout the disassembly process. You don't point it at your friend while you're doing this. I don't even know what to say. Like, that's so basic. And here's the trouble. We tell that story. We tell the Jared Forsyth story, and never once does the author think to mention, well, yeah, and the officer in question, I don't care if it was a Glock, a Smith & Wesson, I don't care what name was carved into the side of the gun. There were so many, I think every single one. Well, everyone but he intended to put his finger on the trigger, so there's that. But the treat all guns if they're always loaded, okay. Never allow the muzzle to cover anything you don't intend to shoot, okay. Know your target, what's around it, what's beyond it, okay. All right, here we go. Continuing, in terms of mechanical design, there are few flaws with the Glock pistols. There are a few. If a law enforcement officer, soldier, or citizen does exactly what they are supposed to do all of the time with cyborg certainty, there will be no problems with the Glock or other popular pistols mimicking the basic design. Unfortunately, RoboCop is only a movie, and humans are liable to make similar mistakes over and over again. So stop. So what the author is saying here is that, well, I will admit that there are few mechanical flaws with the Glock. And if you, if you do everything right all the time with cyborg certainty, there will be little problems. Folks, A gun is dangerous. Handguns are dangerous. They're supposed to be dangerous. That's why we carry them. If handguns weren't dangerous, we wouldn't carry them. We'd carry something else. We'd carry swords. Go ahead.
Just going to say that I was listening to On Combat again yesterday or 2 days ago or whenever it was. I don't know. But and it was funny because it was the day after we came up with this story, because Colonel Dave Grossman there, he said that went over this exact argument that basically one of the things was that there are several steps you take not to have a negligent discharge when you don't want to, obviously.
Well,
and he said that keeping the finger straight and off the trigger is
the number one.
The number one, but it's not always effective because when you clamp your hands together, he said that what did he say?
Startle response?
Yeah, well, the startle response.
Sympathetic motor reflex.
Yeah, but he said that the typical or the average pounds of pull
clench strength
was 25 pounds. So it doesn't matter how long the trigger is.
Unless you're going to put a 30-pound trigger on it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how long the pull is or how heavy the trigger is. You're still, if you have that action in your hand, then the gun's gonna go off. And so after he dealt with that step to prevent the negligent discharge, he went on to a couple different ones. And the last one that he talked about was training yourself to do it correct.
And how about knowing where the dangerous end is pointed?
Yeah. And one of the things here, we had a conversation on Twitter. I'll call it a conversation when this thing first started. And one of the things was...
You and Grossman did?
No. Bob Owens.
Oh, okay.
And a couple other people were in on it.
It was public forum.
Yeah.
This isn't a private conversation. This was on the... because we shared this on the official Student of the Gun Twitter.
Yeah, and he says this seems to be consistent under high stress. He's talking about the clinch, and cannot apparently be trained out.
Okay,
that's wrong. Yes, it can.
Well, it can. Well, it can and it can't. But here's the deal. Yes, the sympathetic motor reflex is something that all quality firearms instructors have known about for a long, long, long time, and we teach that. We teach sympathetic motor reflex, and we talk about it. And that's why if you go to a high-quality school, you'll notice that people have their trigger fingers up touching the ejection ports of their guns, and how this is why when people are like, oh, why would you want to do that? That seems silly or unnecessary. Just take it out. A long time ago, I was taught, and, when you handle guns, your hand is moving around it. But if you're going to be moving with a loaded gun, it's always a good idea to put your finger up. And I didn't always do it. I had to be taught. And I didn't always do it diligently, but I've made myself over the last, many years, do that, especially if I'm moving around. And we've talked about this previously, but it just dumbfounds me that there are still people in the United States of America that claim to be some type of students of the gun, or that claim to be some type of trained or dedicated gun people, and then they'll see someone slip their finger up into the ejection port area of a pistol, like, well, that's just silly. I don't even know why would you want to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just popping it and out of the trigger guard area and just laying it aside the trigger guard area is not good enough. It's not good enough. It doesn't prevent the sympathetic motor reflex.
I wish I could play. I've got the book on my phone. I wish I could play the audio in here.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. We're going to continue on. We're going to dissect this, and then we're going to be done with it. The underlying problem of these pistols, he goes on to talk about the Glock, because apparently Glocks are new, and we're just discovering this. The underlying problem with these pistols is a short trigger pull and lack of external safety. You mean lack of external safety like the Smith & Wesson Model 10 or Model 19 or Model 66, those guns? Oh, but they had long trigger pulls. Really? How long? 2 feet? The difference between a Glock trigger press and a Model 10 trigger press is probably a fraction of an inch. Okay. In real-world encounters, a short trigger pull can be lethal. Yeah, for bad people, in part because of the significant percentage of law enforcement officers. Some say, now this is where it really gets stupid. And you're like, Paul, we're way beyond stupid. Okay, I get that. In real-world encounters, a short trigger pull can be lethal, in part because a significant percentage of law enforcement officers, some say as high as 20%, put their finger on the trigger of their weapons when under stress. According to firearms trainers, most officers are completely unaware of their tendency to do this. Yes, I got that. And where are the guns pointed when that is going on? For more than 35 years, officer-involved accidental discharges with Glocks and Glock-like weapons have been blamed on lack of training or negligence on the part of cops. What critics should be addressing instead is the brutal reality that short trigger pulls and natural human reflexes are a deadly combination. Dude, I don't even know what to say. The thing is, he keeps throwing out the short. How
he spoke to experts in the firearms community, apparently.
Yeah, which experts? Jeremy Stafford out in L.A., who's our number one cop guy in L.A., apparently, he said he wasn't consulted.
Yeah, but Bob Owens didn't contact the LAPD, and this was in L.A. Times.
Are the firearms trainers in L.A.
Yeah.
Those short trigger pull guns dominate the law enforcement markets. They are not the only game in town. This is where it gets. There's a number of major and minor agencies use longer double-action triggers that are just as easy to fire deliberately, da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so there's never been a negligent discharge with a SIG 226 or with a Beretta or with a... And the mechanical safety thing, yeah, that's great if the mechanical safety's on, but when you draw your gun and you think you may need to have to shoot somebody with it, you take the mechanical safety off. So you're still dealing with the same deal. It says, we'll continue to see more Timothy Stansberrys, more Akai Gurleys, and more Jared Forsyths until law enforcement agencies and city governments quit listening to hype about how wonderful these systems are from the companies selling weapons and start caring more about the lives of their officers and their citizens. Payouts to settle accidental shooting lawsuits, yada, yada, have been costing millions. Washington, D.C., for instance, paid out $1.4 million in a single 6-month period in 1998. Yeah, because their officers suck. Not all of them, but a lot do. Guess what else? As we have, and then it goes on to give his like, blah, blah, blah. Hey, Jared, how good are the New York cops at shooting bad guys and not shooting good guys?
Not.
Apparently not very good. We have report after report after report of cops with their New York City-approved guns missing their targets and ventilating bystanders. Why do you suppose that is, smart students of the gun? Could it be because they're putting so much weight on the trigger that it disturbs their front sight as the trigger press is being completed? I don't even understand how somebody who claims to be an alumnus of Gunsight and a firearms instructor doesn't understand the relationship between heavy triggers and poor shooting, or the inability to put your bullets where you really want them to be when a trigger is heavy and untenable. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And here's my opinion about this, and I believe that this is a case of it's kind of the Zumbo Metcalf. Let's say you somehow find yourself as a firearms industry insider. You're the senior editor of gun blasting, shooting, and whatever website, and so you approach the L.A. Times with this article, and they are like, "Ooh, we've got a Judas." We've got somebody who's willing to go against his fellow gun people. Because let's face it, all the mainstream, L.A. Times, New York Times, whatever, they all view gun owners as barbarians anyway.
Well, they knew that this story would get traction.
Yeah, because...
And it did, but it's he's given the wrong information to people, and I don't understand why you would want to do that. You're giving bad information to people that are ignorant and don't know any better.
You're exonerating the human... and you're blaming the tool. So this guy would have us go back to the days of, I don't know what, Smith & Wesson Model 5906s or something like. There's a reason that the Glock pistol is the number one pistol. It's easy to train, despite what happened in Florida. It's easy to train new recruits with the Glock. It's very simple. It's robust. I mean, unless you run it over with an Abrams, it's going to keep working 99 times out of 100. And that's the thing with duty guns is they see a lot of abuse, not from being shot a bunch, but for just being carried and toted around. They get cold, they get hot, they get wet, they get dirty. Cops don't shoot their guns a whole lot just because they don't. Very few. I was a cop for a long time, and here's what I know. Maybe 5 to 10%, and that's being generous, of all police officers actually go out on their own and train and practice.
Which, to me, is ridiculous.
The vast majority of cops, especially in large municipalities, in your little towns, it's different because those are, they come from a gun culture. But your New Yorks and your LAs and your Chicagos and most of the guys on those departments, they never saw or touched a gun until they became a cop, until they got that good pension job. And the only time they ever shoot it is when the department tells them they have to go to the range and do it. And then they do it begrudgingly because they might have to actually clean their gun afterwards. And most agencies are like, training's expensive. We have to pay them to be there. We have to pay for the ammo. We have to take them off the street. So they don't budget a lot of training. Now, L.A., I know Jeremy told me out there that they have quarterly in-service. So they're qualifying every 3 months on his department out there. And you want to know something really cool that they do? They're very progressive. What they'll do is they'll call people in off the street in the middle of a patrol time, and they'll say, go here. And they show up, and they're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. Get up online. You
better be proficient.
You have to. Yeah, you have to be able to qualify. The point in that is there's none of that, we're going to qualify in 3 weeks, go to the range and practice so you can pass. It's you're going to do the qual course right now.
Yeah. So here's a quote. Quote, firearms proficiency is just one small part of law enforcement. Other areas are more important day to day, end quote.
Who's that from?
Bob Owens.
Really?
So the firearms proficiency, I think that is the most important part. Because, if that's one of those things where if you have to use your firearm, you need to be able to do it proficiency.
Well, if you misspell a word in a report, you're not going to die. If you screw up your gun handling abilities, either you're going to die or someone else is going to die or the wrong people are going to die.
And my thing is that if you choose to be a police officer, if you choose to be a cop, then you need to be more elite than the average person. You have a job there.
No, you don't understand. I went to the academy. I got my badge. I'm good. They told me I'm good. So I'm good.
I'm tired of the average person does this. I don't want you to be a cop if you're an average person. I might need you to save my life someday.
Or maybe not. Or maybe they won't.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, let's talk about something that's actually cool. But before we do that, we're going to acknowledge our buddies at SWAT Fuel. Yeah. Oh, Jared, real quick, get the phone number because I don't think we gave it out yesterday.
What phone number?
To be the SWAT Fuel Warrior of the Week.
Oh, yeah. You guys, call and ask a question. Okay? Okay. The number is 682-207-7684 or 682-207-SOTG.
And you guys know you can listen to these podcasts. You can, if you're listening to it on your phone or your laptop or your tablet, you can go back and listen to it again, right? People send us letters. They're like, "Hey, during last Tuesday's episode, Paul said this."
Yeah, it's like that book quote.
It's like, dude, you do know you can listen to it again, right? You are allowed. There's not a limit. We don't put a limit in how many times you can listen to the show.
Maybe we should. Yeah,
that's right. All right, so if you want to be the SWAT Fuel Warrior of the Week, you need to call the number that Jared just gave you. And if you don't remember what it is, rewind and play it again. SWAT Fuel is one of our many good sponsors. I'm still doing the Commandant from the Police Academy movies. many, many fine qualities. And speaking of fine qualities, Century Arms. Century Arms has some fine qualities, including the TP9 SA and the C39 V2, made in the USA, 100% made in the USA AK-47s. And when you get one of these guns, you're like, well, I've got an SA. I've got myself a C39 V2. All right, we'll put some Frog Lube on it, hippie. Frog Lube. Frog Lube is a non-petroleum-based firearms lubricant, and you can eat it if you want. It's minty. I wouldn't suggest eating a lot of it, but you could probably use it for various chores. And it was developed. Actually, the product itself, the base product, wasn't originally for guns, but the owner of Frog Lube, Larry, he is, and the whole frog thing is from being a frogman, being a Navy SEAL. He's a retired U.S. Navy SEAL. He found this product, and he's like, man, I'm a frogman. I get my guns wet and rusty and dirty, and, well, hopefully they don't rust. And I bet this, I bet this stuff would work. And he's like, holy crap, this stuff really works on guns. I'm going to call it Frog Lube and make it green, because frogs are green. And so that's where that came from. So Frog Lube, check those guys out, froglube.com. Now, this is a cool story. This comes to us from the Huffington Post, the Huffing and Puffington Post, which is a crazy liberal, rag. But here's the quote. Ted Cruz, cop helped Garland, Texas shooters meet their virgins. And see, I think that's excellent, but here's what we know about the Huffing and Puffington Post, is they're all a bunch of liberal weenies, and they're probably just offended as crap. And so if Cruz offended them, then that makes me smile. Ted Cruz spoke about last week's shooting in his home state to supporters of South
Carolina.
Okay, Ted Cruz, Republican, Texas, spoke about last week's shooting in his home state to supporters in South Carolina on Saturday. That is a crap sentence. Is that not a crap sentence?
It's confusing.
We saw the ugly face of radical Islam in Garland, Texas, Cruz said, referring to the incident in which two gunmen opened fire near the Curtis Colwell Center before being shot and killed by police. Thankfully, one police officer helped those terrorists meet their virgins, he said.
You know what?
That's awesome.
We had one of our listeners posted to the Student League on Facebook, and he brought up a good point. He said, the media is chastising the people that put on this cartoon contest, because they incited these radical Muslims to come and shoot at them, to come and do this. But at the same time, they're praising these people that are, I don't know if they're praising, but they're not saying anything about these people that are stepping on the flag.
Oh, well.
How they're inciting the Patriots to come punch them in the face.
And the thing is they're not being punched in the face. They're not being shot.
That's sad. They should be. Maybe not shot, but they need to be at least punched in the face.
Well, they're showing us who they are. They're choosing sides. You want to walk on the flag? Okay, great. You've chosen sides. You've chosen sides. You've chosen sides against the good people of the United States of America. So there you go. We thought you guys would enjoy that, the whole Ted Cruz calling out and saying that they met their virgins. What they don't know is that their virgins are a bunch of Silicon Valley tech geeks.
Oh, I thought they were goats.
No, there aren't any virgin goats in the death cult.
Oh, okay.
Do you think there are any virgin goats in the death cult? I don't think so. I don't think so. Does that bring us right up to the end of the show? Wow, man. All right, kids. And we were going to talk about being an armed citizen today, but the whole Hattiesburg thing kind of threw us off track, so we're going to talk about that a little later. But
are we going to do that tomorrow?
Rest assured. Well, tomorrow we're going to talk about salami threatening the U.S. And you're like, what? Salami is threatening the U.S.? Yes, salami is threatening the U.S. And we're going to talk about what's going on with Colt. And it ain't good. Oh, also, because it's Wednesday, we're going to have our SWAT Fuel Fitness Talk. So if you like fitness, you know how many of our viewers are getting in on that.
Everybody likes fitness.
Everybody likes fitness. If you like fitness, tune in tomorrow. All right, folks. Be good. Remember, student for life.